Everyone, welcome back to my video series Agile Development 101. In the last episode, we put the finishing touches on our product backlog item for the sprint, and we made sure that we satisfied the definition of done for that card. So we've we, we finished the sprint. There are two meetings left to have in Scrum's sprint cycle. The first of those meetings is a sprint review, in which we look together with the product owner and stakeholders and the development team. Well, the product owner presents the developed product, and the development team is there to answer questions. The purpose of the meeting is not just a silent demo. It's not a presentation. It is meant as a two-way communication. It's a feedback session. So presumably the stakeholders have insights that they could provide that the product owner can't, because they have different specialities. They have different areas of knowledge. So I don't have any other people around. I just have myself. So we'll kind of talk about how this meeting might go. So the product owner would probably come up and, before presenting the product, would say, yeah, so where are we on our roadmap? On our roadmap, we're working towards our shipment MVP, version 2.0. And in the first sprint, which took roughly an hour of development time, judging by the length of my previous videos, we were able to update the list under the customer to include shipments. And this was a prerequisite before we could get into creating a new shipment or editing a shipment or anything to do with the bill of lading or bringing the quote in. So the product owner would also explain the sequence in which the work has been ordered and why. So we did this one first as a prerequisite. It's the gateway into the shipment screen. Then we're planning to adjust the quote tools, the things that we've already built for the quote that we want to reuse in the shipment. We want to make sure that they are reusable. That's what the isomorphic part means. So there's probably going to be some adjustments there, which mainly will be non-functional, but which are a prerequisite. They're a dependency to getting the shipment running with good quality and low technical debt, which is why this is the next item in the list. If we jump ahead, then we risk building up technical debt, which will take a lot longer to resolve down the road. Well, once we have our kind of isomorphic components ready, then we will start building up the shipment editor with cargo movement and updated statuses. Once we have the editor where we like it, then we will make this like quotation data import. And then once that's where we like it, we will work on making the documents. Okay, so the product owner presents, the status of this is the backlog. This is a release backlog. The full product backlog would basically be everything here plus these items, which are not reflected there, but they're in the roadmap. And so he would field questions like, why don't you give us, I don't know, why don't you do X, Y, or Z first? And he could take that. So the list that he's presented is not fixed. He could change his mind, or she could change her mind. But the ultimate decision rests with the product owner. So the feedback given that should be suggestions or questions, not really demands, because the product owner is not within the product owner retains that responsibility, regardless of the rank of the stakeholders involved, even if it's the CEO. there's an assumption that everybody took when they nominated this product owner, that the product owner will make the decisions, which means that they will be responsible and accountable for those decisions. So overriding him takes that responsibility away and takes away the accountability. And we don't want to do that. We want the person to remain accountable. So we have to let them take decisions, even if they don't please everybody, even if they don't please half the people in the room. So there's this discussion that goes on, and then the topic should transition to a demo of what was made. So we did this: adjust customer view to include shipments. So then the product owner would explain, and it may defer to the development team. The development team could say we had seven different mockups, and we thought this one best reflected the hierarchy between customer quote and shipment. And then what we did is we added two sample data points, two sample shipments, one of which is inactive and one of which is active, so that we can highlight the difference in styling between the two. And yeah, so it's reading the data against the quotes to see if there's a shipment, and if there's a shipment, it's here, and if there's no shipment, it's not there. So that's a pretty short demo because we didn't really build very much this in this sprint. And then the stakeholders would ask questions and give feedback and suggestions. So I could imagine they might, the typical feedback you get is, that's ugly, or I don't understand, which is legitimate but not very helpful. So the product owner should try to get at why something doesn't look right, or why something is difficult to understand. And those should be taken as clues, not as fact, but as clues to something that might be a problem. Whether or not it's actually a problem, in terms of usability and intuitiveness, that would have to be validated against real users. So you'd have to show it to a real user and observe them attempting to use the product, and have an interview with them to understand if this is actually an issue, or it's just, effect of maybe the stakeholder not really knowing much about this this product, or feeling the need to interject, or any number of things. But then there may be also really good deep insights given, like, don't we issue more than one shipment sometimes for the same quote, which leads to a business discussion around what is a quote and what is a shipment, and have we properly defined these terms, which is often not the case. Often we use terminology without having a pure and crystal clear, unambiguous definition, which leads to different people having different, saying the same word but meaning different things. So a quote, is a quote the same thing as winning a contract? A long-term contract. Is a quote the same as guaranteeing a rate to a customer for 3 months? And so on. And those might be questions that the product owner has deferred. He says they're out of scope, or maybe he has an answer for it, or who knows what. But that's all good feedback. And supposing the product owner has a definition of a quote, and also definitions for those other things which have been mentioned, the onus is on the product owner to evangelize those definitions, and he's responsible for the change management in the organization that's coming with this product. This thing is a quote, this thing is a contract, this thing is a guaranteed rate, and that's the definition we're going to use, and try to affect this change in terminology across the organization. Or if he doesn't want to change it, then he should adopt legacy terminology and go with that. So there's this hopefully a great feedback session. There may be some arguments and disagreements, but hopefully everybody in this meeting is learning something about the product and learning where it's going and having some input into that direction. And there may be insights revealed which end up changing the order here, or inserting new items here, or removing other items. The backlog is not fixed. It's a living artifact, so it can change at any time. With the knowledge that any changes are going to impact potentially timelines for release, and that's something that the product owner has to manage and communicate. So that's the first meeting that happens. That's the sprint review. Second meeting is a meeting between just the Scrum team members. So that's the product owner, the Scrum Master, and all of the development team members. And this is, so the sprint retrospective is where we discuss how the team works. What is our communication like? What are our relationships like? What are our processes like? And how can we make them better? How can we avoid problems that we encountered? Again, we're in a bit of a contrived example because I'm only one person, but it is good to self-reflect. So if I look back at this sprint, I would say there's a couple of things that were odd about it. Typically, well, for one, the amount of content I took in was very low, and that was mainly so that I could have a more concise video series. But typically in a sprint, I would take more than this, and I would also deliver something more functional. This is kind of display only, and I wouldn't say there's a whole lot of business value in it. So one of the things I might decide in the retrospective is that in the next sprint, I want to take enough work, I want to select it in such a way that it's going to deliver real value, and we can have a better discussion during the sprint review. Relationships are also talked about. Again, I'm only one person, so I only have my relationship with myself, but often the problems in a team come down to interpersonal issues. Somebody believes that somebody else doesn't pull their weight, or doesn't know what they're doing, or is too aggressive, or is too passive. And the retrospective is meant to provide a safe place to air those feelings and resolve them, or get on the path to resolving them. So one thing there should definitely not be is some kind of report out from the retrospective to senior management. It's meant as an internal team strengthening session, and that's all based on trust. So you can't expect team members to air their grievances when they think that that's going to be exposed to the entire organization. So the Scrum Master has to reiterate, I'm not going to report this to anybody. We should, and you guys should also not report it to anybody. We're all here to make our team better, and let's be open-minded about any feedback and really set the atmosphere for a good team building session. Right, so with that, we've completed one sprint cycle, and in the next video, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. We may time jump a little bit to speed up the process, right? Maybe jump to the end of the second sprint. We'll see, but thanks for listening, and see you next time.